This is me clapping. All right,
This,
now you have a sync point.
hell yeah, this is me fapping. No, I'm kidding.
Whoa.
Wrong stream, wrong stream.
It's an unconventional podcast, but there's something out there for everybody, right?
I mean, that
Could
would...
you imagine an hour-long podcast of just...
Okay, that wasn't what I was thinking. I was thinking how hilarious it would be. Is imagine a podcast where everyone, before it starts, has to wink, so it's literally post-clarity, the podcast.
Every podcast kind of needs like a gimmick. That's like right on brand for a gimmick for a podcast, right? And it would just be called Post Nut Clarity. Like that's the podcast.
No, it'd be post-nut hilarity.
There you go. All right, so what are we doing here?
Alright, I guess we should actually get into the actual recording instead of yanking each other's chain.
That's okay. I love me a cold open. So like I hope this whole bit is in the video.
Sure, why not?
I love cold opens so much. I try to push for cold opens as much as possible. I don't know why. It's just something about them just makes it so much funnier to me.
Yeah, it feels less formal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so for the sake of this, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Tay. I use she, her pronouns. I am a live streamer on Twitch. I am at twitch.tv/taykitten. I'm on Twitter, all that other stuff. I do YouTube videos. Just one of those cool content creator types.
And I will obviously have all your stuff linked below.
Well, thanks.
Just don't credit you at all.
Yeah. It's like, who the fuck is this bitch?
Literally, the podcast just says featuring some bitch found on the street.
Some cat.
I did a podcast with someone at a homeless shelter? Sorry.
And I'm not giving them ad revenue for it?
I didn't even buy them lunch? Damn, these Mr. Beast videos go crazy.
Yeah, Mr. Beast goes nutso-butso. Do you remember the time where people were calling for him to become like the new king of trans people?
I don't 100% remember this, but it doesn't surprise me.
So one of his co-hosts, Chris, came out as either gender fluid, gender queer, just something, right?
There was originally, she came out as gender fluid and / gender non-conforming, and then later she's recently come out as trans woman.
Perfect. Yeah. So like when that happened, a bunch of right-wing types were just like, "Ugh, our kids are getting indoctrinated, blah, 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 blah," and all that shit, right? And people were like, yo, Mr. Beast has the chance to pull the funniest bit of all time. They're like, I paid for 1,000 trans people's surgeries. Just make a video about it.
I trans 100 minors.
I transed 100 minors. Jesus Christ.
I put trans ideology in the schools.
So fucking dumb. But anyway, thank you for the invite to the show. I was very excited to do this. I don't collab as often as I want to. And you reaching out to me for this was very, very appreciative, and I hope that it turns out okay.
I mean, I'm part of it, and I think I look pretty okay. I would even begin to argue pretty decent.
Hey, yo.
The dumbest joke. By the way, I guess I never did my introduction.
Oh, yeah, go to your own show, and I just kind of, stole the whole limelight. But yeah, go for it.
Yeah, Tay's just the host now.
Oh God, I don't need to host another show.
I'll just send you my channel link and like all the passwords. You can have them.
Here you
You
go.
can be me now.
Merry Christmas.
Less of a Christmas gift, more of a threat. Here's more work. Don't worry, we don't pay.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have dental.
All right, who are you?
Yeah, who are you, bitch? Now,
Who's this?
whom sit up?
New podcast. Who dis?
The whole podcast is just trying to figure out who people are. Yeah. It's like a podcast about Clue, but no murder. Who is the bitch in the ballroom? But Most people know me as E for estrogen. Most people also refer to me as shorthand as E4. I am myself in plural system. So, I go by a lot of different pronouns. It is alter specific. However, I am the one who's currently fronting of my system, so I go by Lily, and I use neo pronouns of doll, dolly, doll self. Because gender just is weird.
Gender is kind of fucky.
I wish gender would fucky me.
So I know we can get kind of spicy on this podcast, but there's a webcomic that I have recently very much enjoyed. And at the end of it, and during like the aftercare scene or whatever, one of the characters, like, they were discussing gender ideology and just how they identify or whatever. And
I already
one of
have a
them said,
guess.
yeah, and one of them said, like, I'm pretty sure I fucked the gender out of someone, like, in the room.
Ah!
And like that phrase itself is so funny to me because it's so true for a lot of people I know.
The reason I screamed is because I guessed exactly. That was the comic I was thinking about.
Yep, it's
I
a good
read
one.
this with my girlfriend.
It's so good.
We were reading it like individually. And
Mhm.
I had finished it and I let her know, hey, there's like 3 panels you missed. And then she read the most recent 3 panels. She saw that picture. She was like, yeah, I fucked the gender out of her. She sent me that picture and then said, this is you. And then called me out alter specific. Because I freaking started
Called
using
out by
neopronoun.
name by name by name.
Because I started using fucking neopronouns after I fucking came so hard.
Factory reset.
Who turned the dog into a doll? What the fuck?
Yeah, what the fuck?
Why is the doll barking at me? Okay, speaking of animals and gender.
Yeah, for sure.
Segue. What, in your opinion, because you use she, her pronouns, but I know you identify as a cat girl on the internet.
I do identify as a cat girl on the internet, yes.
Can't believe I'm talking to young cat.
It's me. I was the viral sensation in 2009? Is that 09?
I can check real quick.
Just get completely sidetracked.
I mean, I gotta know. What was your guess? 2009?
Yeah.
2011.
Damn, I was close.
Not far off. Speaking of close, I was going to make a sex joke and be like, "Oh, how have your orgasms been?" By chickened out.
Oh, you know.
Damn, how hard is it for you to come? I'm cutting that one. Anyway, going back. Fuck, give me a second. Okay, so in your opinion, what level of like animal is it tied into your identity gender-wise?
Gender-wise, I would say pretty low. Like, there's the whole thing about, like, so this is gonna sound completely out of left field, but stay with me. There was an article written not too long ago about how anime characters, like, their faces are based off of cats because we see cats as being cute and like shit like that. And I think that plays a part into why I identify the way I do, because I think that style is cute, and that's what kind of led me down my path to transitioning. Like, oh, I want to be cute. What is cute? Femininity and stuff like that for me and everything. So I think that there are aspects of it, but I would say probably very little animal identity at all is tied into my gender because I separate the two. That's just me though, right?
Yeah.
Like, I know it's different for everybody. And I feel like one thing when it comes to animal identities is I see it a lot more in like kink and fetish stuff, but I know that that's not mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
But for me, it's just how I've seen it. So it's hard for me to view my own identity through that lens, you know?
I was trying really hard just to not to say let her cook the whole time.
Let it cook.
Let her cook. Alright, who let the pussy cook?
It's just a burnt like pile of spaghetti.
Want my steak black.
It's just I just had this flash in my head of like one of those like impact font text memes where it's like an anime cat girl made and she's holding like this plate of dubious food from fucking Zelda. And it's just like, Master, I made it the way you liked.
But you mentioned
I'm interested in hearing how animal identity is tied into your gender, because I feel like you're asking this question because you have more experience with it than I do.
I would argue it's not much more experience, it's just I'm more open about it. I
Hmm.
would agree that in a sense I do have more, but I would argue it's not as much as you would think.
Okay.
Because it's not, because for the longest time identified with the identity of being, oh, I'm a dog girl. And I didn't let myself have that identity until like 2 years ago, maybe three, because it just felt like almost like shameful in a sense, because it was like, oh, I can be trans, but I can't be a dog girl. Other trans people can be dog girls, but I can't. It's not for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I
And
kind of like gate kept myself from having that identity.
for
So when
sure.
I finally allowed myself to do it, I was like extremely open about it to like force myself to like stay with it, you know?
Yeah, and like shame is a huge part of not only because this is kind of tying into two things here. Like the kink aspect of things, like shame is a huge part of why people are like repressed in what they want to identify as or explore and everything like that. And I think the same thing goes for gender identity too, because we're so conditioned from a young age, at least we were, that like this social construct is the way it is and it cannot change, right?
Yeah.
So there is shame if you were outside of that. And breaking through that shame and learning and understanding is what helped us become who we were, and a community through the internet and like connecting with other people who felt the same way that we did. And we started coming up with terms and ideas and thought bubbles and everything like that. So pushing through that shame is really healthy. And I think it's just part of what we need to do as a society, to
We
just be
live in a
healthier as
society.
people.
This question wasn't originally listed, but I just would like to know for sake of podcast and also for my own knowledge.
Mm.
How old were you when you found out what LGBT meant? Not when you knew
Ooh,
it
that's a
what it
good
was.
question.
Not when you knew what it was, but when you knew what it meant.
Yeah, totally. That's a really good question. I've never been asked what when it was that I knew what it meant. I knew what gay people were, but I didn't know like what the community at large was and what it meant until probably like mid college. Because my partner at the time was part of their GSA club, the Gender and Sexuality Alliance, and through going to meetings at that club is where I started to learn more about like how people identified, what the problems that this community was going through. Because at the time, I didn't consider myself that queer or that I wasn't trans at that point. Like I didn't identify as such. I was definitely, Flop's wrist, but I wasn't like all the way at that point. I was still exploring and learning. And through that, I think is where I started to learn more about what it meant to be a part of that community, and just the struggle and pride that we can have in those identities. So yeah, I'd say about like sophomore year of college.
I had a similar, like, it was later in my life, but it was, I guess, sooner than that. Because I, for the longest time, had gay neighbors who lived 2 doors down. I
Hmm.
never knew much about them. I just knew they're gay and had adopted a lot of kids. Um, and I knew what gay was for the long until I would say I was like 7 or 8 years old, but I never really questioned it.
Hmm.
Um, and I found out about the acronym itself, LGBT, when I was 13, I'd say. I was 14. I learned by the time I turned 14, I knew what the L, the G, and the B stood for. And when I turned, like, just about to turn 15, I learned what the T stood for. And right when I was about to turn 16, I had the realization, ah, shit, this is me.
Ah, fuck.
Oh, man.
there really is that kind of like sense at the beginning, right? Like everyone has a different coming out story. But I feel like a good chunk of our coming out stories as a collective whole is us looking ourselves in the mirror and going, God damn it.
Ugh. So I came out when I was 15 to myself, and I started coming out to other people when I turned 16.
That's pretty early
I
in
started,
comparison to like people I know.
yeah. I came out to my family at 16. They gave like a really shitty response that I won't get into. But
Hmm.
like after seeing me like be about this and be like, oh, it's like it's not a phase and all that shiznaz. Like
Yeah.
when I was 18, they were like, okay, maybe you might be a bit right.
Yeah, I feel like there's definitely a time period because like my coming out story also wasn't full of roses and good feels. Um, but it's gotten better over time, and I feel like if you have people in your life who are just in general care about like excuse me, who are in general caring about your like health and safety and whatever, they're gonna be misguided at some point, right? Because of their own biases and predispositions. So being patient with that to a degree, I think is just part of the experience in a lot of cases.
Yeah. Uh, totally didn't just start thinking about trauma and space out.
Yeah, it's all good. I mean, we're talking about tough stuff, right? Like we can't talk about LGBT and what it means to us without, our story within that space.
Yeah.
Actually, I have a question for you. Where on this not the spectrum, but like what how do you feel about terms like dude or bro or bruh? Do you
Uh,
think they're gendered or not?
oh, they definitely are.
Okay.
I think out of them, I think dude and bruh are like the least gendered.
Okay.
And in my experience, I just never really had too much of an issue with them. I think bro is when you start dangling over the line of too gendered for comfortability.
I can vibe with that. Yeah,
And I
cuz like
think if you say something like refer to someone like who is I specifically identifies as female and be like, "Come on, man, that man one. That one is like the one that's over the edge in my opinion."
yeah, I can vibe with that. Like I know it's different for everybody because I know some people who are like do not use dude around me, it's too gendered and I'm like, "Yo, that's fair. Like I'll just say other shit, right?" Um but for me like a lot of my time growing up was in very like dude centered spaces. Like I grew up on a swim team full of high school boys, right? Like we were constantly just bro, dude, all that kind of shit. So it's just ingrained in my vocabulary.
Can't believe you were a
And
surfer dude.
yeah, like it was more of like a sound or an accented uh like thing to put into your sentence rather than I am directly calling you this thing, right?
Yeah.
So that's why man for me also isn't that big of an issue because I see it more as an exclamation of like, man, fuck this, like just general, right?
Yeah, like when
But
it's like that, it's fine, but when it's like
yeah,
specifically at a person is when it's uncomfortable.
okay, yeah, I definitely can vibe with that for sure. Um, yeah, because like I love calling people dude. It's just so it fits me as a person. I feel like to
Mhm.
just like keep it chill, you know?
Cat girl that says bruh.
Yeah, I do say bruh, like unironically, all the time. Like
Okay.
there are times like my roommate's cat is an asshole, and like there are times where he'll do something shitty, and like the only words out of my mouth are just a very loud and exasperated bruh.
Yeah, I've done that. Okay, so off topic, and obviously we can cut this if you don't want to say it on this recording. What is the most like terminology like specific like I can't think of the word I'm thinking of, but like dude, bruh, or like internet vernacular per se.
Mhm.
What is the weirdest one you've said in the bedroom?
That I've said in the bedroom. Oh
Yeah,
my god. That's a good
I
question.
can answer it
I
first
mean,
if you
like
want.
legitimately, I
Yeah.
think dude is the only one that I've ever like legitimately used. I've used poggers before, but like ironically.
I didn't use it ironically. I've said poggers, I've said poggies. Feels good, man. Cringe champ.
Cringe champ.
I've said all of them.
Oh my god, it's amazing. Like, sex is supposed to be fun. You find fun your own way.
I mean, if you can't smile or laugh during a sex with somebody, I feel like it's not as enjoyable as it could be.
Yeah, totally.
It's too serious.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking why so serious? That's a stupid. It's the Joker
Hey,
busting down the door. Why so serious?
I mean, it's how us e-clowns get by, right? We have to just be goofy.
Instead of E for estrogen, it's E for clown. Fucking set up streaming, we go to clown college. Okay, so considering we've had like a lot of like not dark topics, but like deep topics that are like
Yeah.
emotionally heavy. Well, let's bring the mood back up for a bit and let's
go
ask
for
a
it.
nice one. What is your favorite part about being trans?
I think my favorite part about being trans is just being like true to what I enjoy and how I present myself, right? Like I've always really liked cute stuff. I've liked, feminine things, but I've held that in because I didn't want to be portrayed a certain way. Like I said, I grew up on a high school boys swim team. So like anything fruity like got you immediately dogpiled. And like, there's a fear about that and like being ostracized, but now that I'm like true to myself and everything, it feels so good to just be genuine.
Yeah,
Like being around people as a girl is just more enjoyable to me than any moment I had ever spent being around people while I was a boy.
yeah. I feel bad because I was going to just respond with a joke answer and be like, "What's your favorite part about being trans?" The titties.
I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty good.
They be jiggling.
They do be jiggling though.
I got them badonkadonks.
when that prog hits your bloodstream, woo!
But yeah, I do. I relate to what you said a lot, and it's just like I was. If you want the real answer, it's like, what's your favorite part about being trans? Finally being happy.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Like, there's an old like LGBT millennial meme that was like HRT doesn't stand for hormone replacement therapy. It stands for happiness replacement therapy. And it's like that's the most like millennial impact font bullshit I've ever heard, but it's kind of true,
That's
you
the type
know?
of shit you see at a middle school GSA meeting.
Yeah, exactly. It's like exactly that type of vibe where it's just like, yeah, we get it, dude. Like, come on.
I mean, there's still some people who act like that into their adulthood. Let's be
Yeah, there's
honest.
nothing wrong with that, but I mean, like, I'm coming at it from like a Zoomer perspective of like, crispy, fresh, hot memes.
Yeah, but I've been to a gay bar, or gay bars before, and there's still people who act like that way into their 20s and 30s, and it's just like,
Hmm.
ugh.
Yeah, it's a little bit of an ick for sure.
Damn, why can't you be depressed like the rest of us? Get some trauma, jackass.
I'm not saying trauma is a rite of passage, but it does make you funnier.
Why do you think I'm so hilarious? Okay, so now that we've had our moment of happiness, let's get back
Mhm.
into the deep.
Yeah,
Let's
go
go back
for
to
it.
hating ourselves.
I think no. I think that's one of the beautiful things about content creation, specifically like what I do, is like on my stream, we go from like really happy, funny, goofy topics to way more serious stuff, kind of like a metronome. We just go back and forth and back and forth. And I think that's what allows us to get kind of deeper is because we know that that levity is coming, that we can kind of take a breath and continue, take a breath and continue.
Damn, I wonder what it's like to be coming.
Just an uncomfortably long silence.
The worst part is I genuinely did the stereotypical looks out the window. There's
Yeah.
a window right next to my desk, and I just looked out like, damn, I wonder.
It's just like that fucking. Have you seen the picture of the fucking horse on the beach looking out in the ocean?
Yeah. For the first thing I thought of was the scene where Gandhi looks out the window in Clone High.
Dude, I fucking love Clone High. Oh my god. Like I think that show is so underrated, like the original for sure. It's so hard to find. It's been like wiped from the internet, but when you can find it, I actually think they added it to HBO Max because of the new season, like the
Yeah.
old stuff. It's it was so ahead of its time, to be quite honest. I love that shit.
It's one of those shows that I didn't actually get to watch because growing up I just didn't really watch much TV or like seek it out that much. And then
Hmm.
I wish I did. And because I go back and I love the humor from that show every time I see it.
Hmm.
And it's one of those shows that like if I had more time in my life, I would sit down and watch. But like there's just so much nowadays.
For sure. My favorite line in the entire show, and this is a complete derail, but there's an episode where they win some sort of sports game, and the school goes like on a riot to like party or whatever, and they one of Genghis Khan ends up flipping an in-ground concrete pool like out of the hole and like just completely flips it. And the next day, the principal is getting reprimanded by a bunch of army generals. And the principal just goes, "But did you see the pool? They flipped the bitch."
I was gonna say my favorite line is all of the memes that came from the "Nothing bad ever happens to the Kennedys."
Yeah. Hey, 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 nothing bad ever happens to the Kennedys. So good.
My favorite one is the one where it just plays the TF2 Meet the Sniper intro.
Yeah.
Okay.
So good.
But yeah, going back to the topics we had listed out. It's so hard because I just want to shitpost.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Like I love shit posting. It makes things interesting.
Yeah, but I feel like I should force myself to occasionally pull it back.
Yeah, we're doing a show and all that. Blah blah blah.
I know, it's so cringe.
It's so cringe.
That's how I met my girlfriend.
What, by being cringe?
Yes. Freaking. I
The
said that
hottie.
at I
The
said that on,
hottie I pulled by being cringe.
I said that on our Tinder date, and she's like, "Well, I can't not fuck her."
Fair enough.
But yeah. But we mentioned earlier that your identity is with Catgirl and you use she/her pronouns.
Hmm.
If you were in a situation where you were asked the same question, like what is your gender and your gender identity, if you were asked by a cis person around other cis people versus a trans people in a group of other trans people, does the answer change?
Very mildly. Like just first and foremost, I just go, I am girl, I am woman, and all that shit. And like that doesn't change from trans to cis people when I'm talking to them. It only gets a little bit more esoteric when I'm talking to other trans people
Gotta
about
bust
like
out
the
the fucking
kind of.
vocab words on me.
Do you not know what esoteric means?
I used to know, but it's been so long.
It's okay. It just means like really hyper specific bullshit that only like some people understand and know.
Yeah.
So like it only gets more esoteric when I'm talking to other trans people because I can get a little bit more in depth as to how I identify as opposed to just a blanket this is how I identify.
Yeah.
And like really minor stuff like, oh, I'm, femme or I am uh trans girl, this, that, the other thing, and just getting into the really nitty-gritty of it. I've explained this to people before, when it comes to like getting the general like public, lack of a better term, to understand LGBT stuff more. Because a lot of times you'll see publications and like mass media and stuff being like, this person identifies as, gender void. What the fuck is that? Instead of like
Okay, but
starting at
nude?
yeah, like starting at the top of the tree. Like we need to paint in broad strokes. Like this person is part of this community. And once you understand what that is, now we can move down to the tree into like what each of those letters the acronym is. Now we can move down the tree again once you get that. And like it's just this like flow chart of understanding, and like getting people in at the top of the flow chart is way easier than jumping them into like somewhere near the bottom.
Also, I'm just still thinking about how sick gender void is
Have you never
because
heard that?
I think I've heard it before, but I've forgotten about it.
Hmm.
Because I haven't talked to you about my system much specifically, which I should
Yeah, no, go
another
for it.
day. Um, and that's off podcast thing.
Gotcha,
Um,
gotcha.
one of my alters identifies as just an entity and just uses its pronouns. So the idea of
Hmm.
it referring to itself as gender void is kind of funny. It's like, what's your
Yeah, and
gender?
that's yeah. Like I've heard agender, gender void,
Well,
just
agender is an
all.
I was about to say agender is an actual term, but then I realized that sounds bad.
No, no, that's the thing, right? That's what I'm talking about when it comes to the flowchart idea that I have, right?
Yeah,
Like you'll hear something from on the other side of the flowchart, 3 layers down from your understanding. And you'll be like, "What the fuck is that?" And you have to go layer by layer again to learn and understand what that is. And like, the more the general understanding when it comes to like general population stuff is still pretty high in the flowchart, in my opinion. But I think with time, we keep getting lower in that flowchart, which is healthy and good. Um, and I think it's unreasonable to expect society and just people in general to immediately jump to accepting everything because that's just not how people work,
yeah,
because we're learning creatures, we learn by pattern, and if something so far outside of our pattern jump scares us, we panic and shut down, and that just doesn't lead anywhere other than like negative places.
that's why every time I go to the like the scary conventions, when I get jump scared, I just go cry in the corner because I
Hmm.
didn't see the pattern.
Yeah. You gotta recognize the pattern. Creepy music build up. Violin strings. Uh-oh.
Alright, who pissed my pants? What pattern is this?
God damn it. I keep getting derailed because my brain is full of worms, but that just reminded
And your
me
pants
of
are full of piss.
it just reminded me of a legendary like Phasmophobia clip where this one streamer was playing with a bunch of friends and turns around in Phasmophobia, turns on his flashlight, and the ghost face is like a centimeter away from him, and he doesn't react. And he turns off the light, turns around, and starts walking away. And he pulls up his walkie-talkie and goes, yeah, the ghost just pissed my pants for me." It makes me laugh every time.
Motherfucker got a going away kiss.
So I would say, like, just to get completely back on topic, like the answer varies, yes, but not by any like major margins, I would say.
Yeah, I got one last joke.
Go for it.
Who the fuck? Fuck, I can't even say it. Fuck.
I believe in you.
I'm actually gonna piss myself.
So the way Discord's noise gate works is like every so often I'll just hear this little squeak and then just complete silence.
That's just how I laugh. Like you'll see in the recording, that's just how I laugh. Who the fuck browned my pants?
Pants stay brown.
That was the joke I couldn't get out. Fuck me.
It's all good. So,
Uh,
for you though, does it change pretty drastically when talking from a cisgender person to a transgender person? And I think another thing too is, are we talking to an ally cis person, or are we just talking to like some Joe Schmo?
I would say, I mean, either would be a good representative. I mean, if you want to go into detail on either specific.
No, no, go for it.
Um, I mean, yeah, even if they are a quote unquote ally, I refuse to use neo pronouns around non-trans people because I just like, that's not something I just want to explain.
Hmm.
Um, That's something I like. I've made sure to make a note about on my stream specifically, and it's like out in bold. So if people have a problem, they can go, and if people don't
Mhm.
want to respect it, they get out. As simple as that.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, but yeah, my gender's fucked up. So
That's
just a random
well
person,
within your right. Yeah.
fuck me up gender style. Um, fucking fuck me up Gundam style. Anyway, usually what I'll explain to people is just like, oh yeah, I'm just trans femme. If I were to talk to another trans person, I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm like an angelic doll that barks. And it's just like, gender, weird. Part
Yeah.
dog, part doll, angel coded, EP coded.
EP coded for real, for real.
Fucking, I'm just a little fella. Let me sleep on your dog bed.
Yeah, and I think like that goes into what I'm saying too. Like when you're around other people who know what you're talking about and have experienced the things you've experienced, it's so much easier to just like talk comfortably. Whereas, if you're coming up against someone who you probably like, it's obviously an assumption game where you're just like, okay, you probably don't have these experiences that I do, so I'm going to keep it surface level for you until I get to know you better.
Yeah. Oh my
I
god, you're
just
non-binary?
nine binary.
Yes, so poggers.
Mm-hmm. I can't. I will always remember the one time I made my chat so mad. Um, we were talking about gender stuff, and cat boys and cat girls came up, and someone very innocently asked, "What if someone is non-binary but still wants to be a cat person?"
Non-binary.
Yeah, non-binary, NYAN. And like everyone in my chat was like proverbially throwing tomatoes at their screen, like boo. So
Frick.
funny.
Too bad. Can't handle the got so many haters, you can't handle my gender.
Yeah. I actually just thought of a topic that I'm wondering if you would like to talk about. So one thing that's huge in the LGBT community is reclaiming terms that used to be slurs or still are slurs as their own identity, or just reclaiming the word so that they can use it and not feel that they are being put down by it if they're the ones using it, right?
It's like
What
to
is your
remove the weight behind them.
Yeah, remove the weight behind it. That's a good way of putting it. Where are your views on that kind of a thing? And what toes the line? Obviously, don't say any slurs if you don't want to, but like, what feels like it's towing the line for you? And if you want me to go first, let me know.
I feel most anything is reclaimable as long as the person who is trying to reclaim it is okay to use it. Regarding specifically queer identities and gender in general,
Hmm.
I have no issues reclaiming. There's other ones I have problems with, but none of them are gender related.
Yeah, for sure. And like, it always comes down to an issue of like, well, who gets to decide that factor for me? So like, are you, gay enough to use that slur or anything like that? And then like who decides that? And then becomes this like whole fucking thing. But yeah, it's if you're the one reclaiming it yourself and you are part of the in group to any degree, then I think it's fine. For me, like specifically the one I'm talking about is the F slur. Like I do not
FA?
like that word whatsoever. And like I know a lot of people who have reclaimed that for themselves and love calling themselves that, calling their friends that, and everything. And more power to them. Just please don't use it around me, because I when I hear that word and have it used around or at me, hell forbid, um, it just like there's this history and gravity behind the term that I can't get over.
Yeah. I would like to clarify. You mean the FA word?
Yes,
Okay. I that was one of the ones that I'm like iffy on. Is like you can try and reclaim. I that's one of those ones that I'm like in private spaces, go for it.
for
If
sure.
we're in public, maybe not.
Yeah. I think that also lends a factor is like, where are you saying this about yourself? Because
Yeah.
like if you're doing it out and about in public, then yeah, you better have an ironclad, like index card of like why you feel like you're okay to say that. But like in private, whatever. And
Yeah.
like there have been conversations I've had with people about like slurs in general and like why does this slur, hurt so bad, and just like philosophy thinking about it. And like there have been times where I'm just like, yeah, I'd be okay being called that in extremely specific circumstances and with aftercare, you know?
Me
So
describing my
it's not
sexuality.
yeah, like it's not a complete blanket, but it's always good to talk about and understand other people's positions when it comes to that kind of a thing, and just not assume. Like if you join a new LGBT group of people and they just start slinging slurs back and forth, that's a red flag for me, like immediately. Uh like like I said, that whole group may have already, reclaimed the word, lost the gravity to it or whatever, but like to just completely drag someone into it apropos of nothing is really red flaggy for me.
While we're on this topic, I have a more specific, precise question I'd like to ask you.
Mhm.
Do you feel the word queer has any weight behind it anymore, to you yourself or as a whole?
As a whole, I think it's lost a lot of its like negative weight and gained a lot of positive weight. Um for me, like hearing the word queer is just like a more broad encompassing phrase than LGBT, because LGBT feels very specific and like, it's these four things, or even LGBT plus, it's these four things and then a bunch of other stuff. Queer,
LGBTQIAP.
yeah, exactly. And like that's a talking point on the right, is like, "Ah, they're adding to the acronym again. Rah." But like if we just say queer, it just encompasses all of it. And I don't think that, like, I haven't heard queer being used as a derogatory in a very long time. And I think that it's lost a lot of its, like I said, negative weight. And I think it's a really good thing to keep pushing the positive weight to it, because it definitely doesn't feel as aggressive or steeped in history as like the F slur.
Yeah. The reason I asked that word specifically is because that was the word that I used to describe my gender identity for the longest time when I was trying to like
Yeah,
figure it
totally.
out. And
For
that is
sure.
was the actually the first thing I ever got tattooed on my body was the word queer, which is on my ankle.
Oh, that's cute.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I
So
had to
like
fucking not vocal stim after saying you said that.
so when it comes to sexuality and like explaining my sexuality to people, when people ask me if I'm gay, regardless of if they're in the LGBT community, queer, whatever, what have you, or straight, ally, whatever, if the question comes to me verbatim, are you gay? Or like, how do you, what's your sexuality? Or what are you? I always respond with 100% like consistency. I'm a lot of things, and
I'm,
I leave it at that.
I'm a bit fruity.
I'm a weird. So I think it's completely up to person by person basis, and as long as people who are asking you in good faith, it's fine to engage with that.
Yeah. Sorry.
It's all
Um.
good.
Well, I guess we can move on to the next topic for I have.
Sure.
Uh, what angers or pet peeves or frustrations do you have about the transition process as a
S-
whole?
So I have a physical one, an emotional one, and a societal one. And I know I've been saying society a lot, but I hope the meme has worn off by this point. We can actually
I can
move
just add a
past it with
counter.
yeah, society.
Every time it's a
um
Joker jump scare and it adds it up to the
yeah.
counter.
So my emotional one, my pet peeve is the self-doubt and like the feeling of like this is the most bottom thing I'm ever going to say,
Ooh.
but like the need for permission to be happy,
Oh,
you
that one
know?
hit hard.
Yeah, all right. Like when I was first coming out and like transitioning and everything, I felt like I needed permission to like go girl mode around other people, right? And like I wanted to let people know ahead of time, like, hey, I'm thinking about going girl mode for this, is that okay? And like I would always get hit with the response of like, yeah, why wouldn't it be? And it's like, because I've got brainworms, you don't understand. So that was that is still a huge pet peeve of me, of like going to a function or a shindig or whatever in girl mode and like getting the vibe of like, did she did that person really have to do this? Like, get all dressed up for this? Like, just whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like come naturally or whatever. And like, no, fuck you, I'm girl.
Come
And
naturally, dick out. Fucking birthday suit or rockin'.
hmm and that ties into my societal one too. Like, trying to find a job while you're trans feels like such a mountain climb, even if it isn't. Because I live in an extremely blue state. I live in Minnesota, you know, represent or
Dox
whatever.
yourself. Dox yourself.
My address is. And the
Wait,
3 silly numbers on the back of my credit card are. um, so I live in a really blue state, but even then, like, there's always this paranoia. Anytime I get a job interview, anytime I go on like a voice call or Zoom interview or whatever, there's always the paranoia of, did I get passed up because of how I identify, you know?
yeah.
And like, legally, everyone's going to say, you know, oh no, it's just because there was a better candidate, blah, 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 and everything. But there's always that inkling in the back of your head that's like, you know, it's
It's hard
it's
to
a
prove.
factor. Yeah, we as trans folk just have to understand that that's a factor, and there's nothing we can control about that sometimes. And it sucks and it's shitty and I hate it. But like, I feel like we're getting better over time, but we're just not there yet, you know?
Yeah,
And my last one, the physical one, fucking shaving. I fucking hate shaving.
I feel that. If you don't mind me
I
asking, how often do you find yourself shaving?
So it depends, because I am currently in the process of getting laser hair removal on my face, and it's been doing absolute wonders. I highly recommend it. It's expensive, but it's worth it. It hurts
Me
a
too.
lot, but it's also very, very worth it. And I have found that through laser hair removal, I'm shaving my face every day, but the hair on my face has gotten so thin to the point where I can go like maybe a day and a half to 2 days looking clean shaven. Um, Whereas before I would have to wait a day or two to shave because my skin was so sensitive, and I would get ingrown hairs all over my face, and it would just look awful if I tried to shave every single day. So I had to like pre-plan events based on my shave schedule, which was so awful. And then when it comes to like body shaving, I just do it as is needed. Like,
Yeah.
if my legs start getting a little prickly, like whatever, I'll just shave that. But that's not as a necessity. It's not as necessary as is my face is, you
Yeah,
know?
that's definitely similar. If I may ask one invasive question, when is the last time you shaved your legs?
My legs?
Yes.
2 days ago, I think.
I haven't done
Um,
mine in over a year.
That's fine. You know, you're not obliged to, like, it's not a mandate that once you're a girl, you have to shave leg. Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, I know. I just kind of wish I could force myself to do it sometimes. And it's not
No, that's
even that
fair.
much. Every time I tell people it's been over a year, they look at that, it's like, that's like 2 months worth.
Yeah, like everyone's hair grows differently too, right? Like I know someone who has never shaved their legs, and it's the smoothest fucking shit I've ever seen in my life. I'm so jealous of them.
I mean, I'm kind of lucky in the fact that I don't have much body hair
hmm
besides legs and underarm. And I shave my face every other day, but I could
hmm
realistically get away with it at once every 3 days,
hmm
unless I know somebody's going to be like extremely close up in my face.
Yeah, that's a thing too. Like I feel like I'm way more critical than I need to be on myself sometimes with how I
Yeah.
look. Because there are days where I look in the mirror and I'm just like dysphoric as shit. And then I hop on stream and everyone's like, "Oh my god, you're so pretty," and I'm like, "Oh," and it kind of knocks
Smash.
yeah, it just knocks the dysphoria out of me. But like, you can't get over your own self, image of yourself sometimes,
Yeah.
and it's really tough to like look at something so minor that no one's going to notice and just have it like eat away at you all day. Because like there was a day where I was presenting femme, wearing makeup and everything, and I still felt like my upper lip looked like a little too off. Like
A little
there's
too kissable.
no God, no, stop it.
I
No, but
know what you
like
meant.
I'm trying to cover up, the discoloration of my skin from the hair being there, right? and I was fretting about it, and I was like futzing with it and trying like just different, you know, makeup things on it. And then Josh poked his head, my roommate, in the room and was like, "Are you ready to go?" I'm like, "I just can't get my upper lip looking like I, don't have facial hair and blah blah blah." And he's like, "You look fine. Let's go." And like, I just looked at him like, what? You're right. Like, I need to just like fucking chill. Like, I won't be chill, but I need to try to at the very least.
That's why
Because like,
everybody.
no one's gonna fucking come up to you with a magnifying glass and go, your pores are a little too thick here."
That's why everyone needs like a dude bro in their life while transitioning. Just the one
Yes.
homie you trust, and it just like tells you what straight is.
Truth. Yeah, that's honestly the role Josh has filled for me. Like, he's such a great ally, and like he's my absolute best friend. I love that guy. And like there have been times where I'm just sitting there and like, well, I don't want to like talk about my feelings because I feel like a burden. And then he'll just look at me and go like, "Shut up and talk to me, you idiot." I'm just like,
Smacks you around a little. Tell me what you need.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
So is he your every trans woman stereotype friend from pre-transition?
Uh yes, but Josh has known me pre-transition less than other people in my life.
Yeah. I
He's
still. Sorry.
he was definitely there when I came out and started transitioning and everything, but he and I only started getting like really, really close. Um, after my no, 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 sorry. I roommated with Josh in college around my sophomore year when I like started going to like GSA meetings and everything like that. So like he knew what I was about, but I wasn't out at that point. But we were still like really close friends. But we didn't start getting like really close together until we like started really like living together,
Post
like
boobies.
as roommates and stuff.
Started to really relate and be really good friends when I had tits. It's like, damn, I
So,
never realized how cool you are.
I'm like, oh geez. Um, so I'm gonna flip the question on you then. So do you have like pet peeves and stuff about being trans? Or the transition process, sorry.
Oh, fuck. Well, the first one that came to my mind is such a minor one, but I just like to state it. Fuck blood work. Shit sucks.
Yeah, it's a little annoying for sure.
You
I
know,
I didn't even think about the medical part of it in this because my medical transition has been like fairly straightforward and streamlined.
yeah,
But I know
it's
that's not the
been
case for
great for me
everybody.
too. It's just I have had multiple occasions fainting during blood work.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the most recent one that pissed me off the most was when I was doing blood work. They had done like more because well, the way to do blood work is you have to fill up like vials with your blood while the needle is in you to pull it out so they can run tests on it. And
Mm-hmm.
they usually fill anywhere from like 2 to 4 vials to run tests on. And this time specifically, they wanted to do 6 because they had multiple things they wanted to test on me. And I ended up fainting, falling forward. The nurse had to catch me and was yelling down the hall to help find someone who could help lift me because
Oh
I'm
no.
not the skinniest. And as she is trying to hold me up, and as I'm like coming in and out of consciousness, I just dealing with the comments about my weight and also getting misgendered, like coming just out of consciousness, was not
Mm-hmm.
fun.
Yeah, I bet that. Yeah, that sounds like really awful. I'm sorry you had to go through that.
And the only other time that I like specifically remember hard fainting was the first time they did blood work. I originally started in North Carolina and I was doing it through Duke. Dukes, they are very well what they do. They are very thorough. So there
Mm-hmm.
is lots of paperwork, lots of questioning, and the first time they did blood work, they had to fill 8 vials of that shit.
Oh my god.
And that was the first time I ever remember fainting in my lifetime. They
Mm-hmm.
were done, and then I was like, I need to lay down.
I need to lay.
Luckily, that person was stronger and was able to like lift me to the bed.
Mm-hmm.
But frickin' yeah, fuck blood work.
Yeah.
Transition wise, God, do I hate the requirement? Not, it's not a requirement, but do I hate the internal feel and also the societal weight of having to fucking voice train?
Yeah, that's a big one for me too that I didn't cover. Is like that's something I've been thinking about recently is just voice training and like changing the manner of how I hear myself.
Yeah.
Like that's such a huge change, and like people expect femininity to sound a certain way, and that sucks.
Especially since as someone who got complimented a lot on their voice growing up, and it's just like, I hate this shit.
Yeah.
And people, I remember in high school, like a senior year, English teacher's like, I really like your voice. I like the way you talk, and I was like, "Ugh, I'm glad someone does. Um, because I can do a lot of different voices, but that's not the thing I need.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like I'm also pretty good when it comes to like goofy, silly voices and just like imitations or whatever. But when it comes to like doing it that long, that consistently, like it's tough.
Yeah, and I hate how like because the fact is that testosterone is the stronger hormone, and transmasculine individuals will get like voice dropping.
Hmm.
A lot of cis people don't realize that trans femme individuals voice train is all them. Like
Yep.
a majority of the people that I would tell, they're like, wait, you have to do that shit yourself?
Yeah. So when I was living with my past partner and their partner, we were metamors. Do you know what that term means?
No.
Metamor is the relationship between two partners that aren't romantically engaged in a polycule.
Okay, so basically, you're dating the person one, and person one is dating you and person two, but you're not dating person two.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
That would make me in person two a metamor.
Okay. So I do know what that term is then.
Yeah, yeah. At least that's how it was explained to me. I could be completely wrong, but
I think my girlfriend
um,
had used it before explaining her polycule. I just forgot.
yeah. So there was one day where we were all hanging out, and he had remarked to me that he had noticed that my voice was getting higher. And I cocked my head to the side. I'm like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "Well, your estrogen, like your voice is getting higher."
Oh,
And we had to talk to him like, "No, that's not actually how it works." And he learned right there in the spot that testosterone does that, but estrogen doesn't. He was like, "Oh, learning experience."
my estrogenized voice.
Mhm. I do think my voice has gotten like generally higher since I was in like high school or whatever, just because how I talk and the things I'm into um are a little bit more feminine, and like I'm expressing that more now.
Yeah.
So like it just as a natural consequence, my voice has gotten higher than like when I was in like high school or whatever.
Yep. I still have like high school recordings I can go back. It's a slight change, but it is noticeable.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely noticeable in my case.
I think it's especially easier to tell for people like us who have like jobs where there's lots of recordings of us talking.
For sure.
Since we
Oh
both
yeah,
do
for sure.
content creation, everybody knows our voice and you can see over the time how it's changed. We
Yeah.
have
So
so
like
much proof of it.
yeah, so like the first couple episodes of Baseless Claims, I have a much deeper voice, like much, much deeper. It's super noticeable. It was before I was like starting to like explore and pass or whatever. Um and it's so jarring to hear myself from that time.
Yeah. Yeah. We have hit the 1 hour mark, so I will go to the last conversation point that I had.
Go for it.
Do you feel your relationship with exploring kinks has changed since your transition, or throughout your transition, I should say?
For sure. We get to talk about kinks now, which is like one of my favorite fucking things to
Time to
do.
be a pervert on the internet.
So I feel like kink to me was a vehicle for my own understanding of who I am, what I am, and how I identify. And a lot of people will look at like forced feminization or sissification and shit like that and see that as kind of like a fetishized version of an identity.
Yeah, I
But
definitely
that's
stopped
not
looking at it.
Yeah, it's definitely not always the case though, because I definitely know people who are queer or on the gender spectrum who are still into that kind of thing,
Yeah.
without it being, seen as fetishizing an identity. Because like there's a very clear and distinct difference between someone being into someone because of like feminine traits or sissification or whatever the fuck, and being trans, right? Like we have the term chaser for a reason.
Yep.
And when it comes to like sissification and forced feminization, one of the things that I like to ask people who are into that kind of thing as what their enjoyment from it is, because if they see just being feminine as a humiliating trait, I'm not into it.
Yeah.
Because like being feminine shouldn't be humiliating.
Time to
And
bust
like
out the misogyny.
exactly, right? It's steeped in this like misogynistic viewpoint, and like I don't engage with cross-dressing or sissification content as much as other people do.
Yeah.
And like that's by design, right? Like it makes me uncomfortable because I don't know immediately why people are into that when I'm talking to them. So I want to understand the angle a bit more before I engage in a conversation with them, as to like protect myself from getting uncomfortable.
I mean, if you want, I can go in detail with my own experience with it.
If that's what you want to do, go for it.
Sure, why not? For me, it is. The interest comes from it being something that I want in my own life, and it
Hmm.
being forced upon me makes it what's enjoyable. Because it's like, it's hard for me in my life to ask for things I want or do things I want. Even nowadays, with my relationships with my girlfriends, a lot of the times they'll have to like get things out of me. They'll be like, okay, you said you wanted this earlier, now you're denying it. Do you actually want it? Or I'm happy like going out of the way for you if this is something you actually
Hmm.
want. And that's like a huge part of it. And
For
also,
sure.
there's also just a part of me that is still in the very back shamed of who I am and how I dress. And
Hmm.
having this like mentality of it wasn't my choice kind of makes it feel less difficult to experience said things.
For sure. Like the control is taken out of that, right? And you're not sure of your own control. So when put into the hands of someone you trust, it feels, rewarding because you trust them in their opinion. And if they're doing this thing to you, then that must mean that it's okay.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a very healthy and, good way to do like force fem or sissification or whatever. The ones that get me are like the I'm doing this because it's humiliating and like, oh, I should be a burly, strong, manly man and this person's making me into a girly girl and that's embarrassing and humiliating. And
It's
it's like,
embarrassing how much the skirt twirls.
exactly, right? And it's like, okay, are you coming at that from a point of genuine understanding about like how the world works, or are you in your own like, you know, fantasy riddled brain of just ignorance and not understanding?
This is a bit of a tangent, but I did want to bring this up because I just remembered thinking about it. This is like finding the healthy manner of exploring certain kinks. And I've just
Yes,
sudden
for sure.
reminded of an extreme unhealthy manner that I had to witness in college. Uh, I was at lunch with a two friends of mine, and for this conversation, I have to specify one of them was a cishet white dude, and the other was a cis bi black girl.
Hmm.
And we got into a conversations about kinks, and me and the girl were like way more open and comfortable talking about our kinks and sexuality because that's something we had to like deal with growing up, thinking about more often than not.
For sure.
Uh, and the extreme was watching this white guy trying to justify his favorite kink to the black girl being race play,
Oh boy. Oh wow.
and how he specifically likes the idea of dominating black women being a slave owner.
Wow.
Uh, I'd also
I
like to point out I
I
had.
almost I almost envy his confidence. You know what I mean?
Ah,
Like
God, I would kill for that.
the absolute gumption you have to have, because this was in public, right?
This was at a public cafeteria.
Oh my god. Wow.
Uh, I would like to point out that I had known the black girl for about a month, and the white dude was her friend.
Oh my
This
god.
was the first time I had met them. This was like half an hour into our conversation.
And like Did she indicate that this has been, like, talked about before?
No.
Oh my
She looked at him
god.
with such disappointment, I was impressed.
Good.
And then they had
Fuck
like
that
an
guy.
actual conversation about how that's not okay, and I never have gone quieter in a conversation.
Oh
I
my
just stood there in
god.
awe, like, what the fuck?
Holy shit. Thank you for sharing that story with me. That's fucking wild. 'Cause, like, yeah, we talking about more taboo fetishes, and I'm not excusing race play. I don't vibe with that at all.
I'm too white to have
Um,
an opinion.
yeah. And, like, talking about tougher stuff, like, more, my speed is, like, CNC, right? Consensual non-consent.
Yep.
That's a tough thing to talk about. And, like, boiling it down and really analyzing it requires a certain space and mutual understanding with each party. You
Yep.
don't just drop that in a public cafeteria, you know?
Uh I have fun fact about me. There's like a running history with me of individual because I am very sex open and you know about this. Even on my
Yeah.
streams, I am way too open about shit. Uh, I have a lot of people will come to me and talk about kinks specifically, how they sometimes oversharing a lot, talking about
Mhm.
like what's their experience with it, what they get out of it, and what's they like about it.
Mhm.
So I have gotten to learn about a lot of kinks.
Oh,
Some that I
same.
like didn't even know were things for the longest time.
Mhm.
And there's a couple like one-off kinks because you know like some people have like certain scenarios in their life they were confused but they were turned on during and now they have to come at it at a lens later in life like okay, but why?
Yeah, for sure.
So I the reason I bring this up because there's another story that I want to talk about from college. It's way shorter. I knew this one girl who I ended up hitting it off with. We ended up going back to my dorm, not for sleeping, but because we just wanted to hang and there wasn't much places to go where we were. My
Mhm.
dorm was like right next door. So we ended up going back to my dorm, and I had been talking to this girl for about half an hour. And like half an hour in, she is on my bed in my dorm, which was a bunk bed that's high up.
Mhm.
So I am looking, and I'm sitting in a chair looking up to her, and she's like, yeah, my most like specific kink is I have like a drowning kink. Like I don't like choking and I don't like things around my neck, but the idea of like being held down like face forward into like a bathtub and like barely able to breathe or get air is like really hot to me. And I'm just like,
Oh,
how did
honey,
I
like,
get here?
yeah, like, honey, yeah, like, we all like, I know what you're talking about. I feel the same way, but bitch, we've known each other for 30 minutes. Let's pump the brakes a little bit.
I'm way too like nonchalant about it and like bad about setting those types of boundaries. So I
Oh,
just say, fuck
same.
it, we ball.
Fuck it, we ball.
Fuck it, we ball. Tell me about the bathtub.
For sure, right? Like,
Oh no, not the
finding
toaster.
finding spaces to talk openly about kink is really healthy if you're, of that variety. My local kink community is super good with that, like, providing of space to talk about kinks and everything.
Yeah.
There's some issues with it, and I don't really want to get into that. It's not really my place to talk about. But finding your groups like that has been something that has been really enlightening to me. Like, oh, there are other people who are into the same things I'm into and want to talk about this. It's not like a hush hush, enjoy that in your private time and only find someone by miracle, who's into that kind of thing. No, surround yourself with people who like those things that you like.
Yeah.
Have you engaged in your kink community locally at all?
Uh, I was sorta, I was like active in like the LGBT center stuff when I lived in North Carolina, and I was like starting to become more wary of said kink community and finding out more about it, but I never like visited the area. But I like knew a couple of the people because they were like regulars at the LGBT center. So I was like starting to
Yeah.
get an idea of what it was like. But I never had gone before I moved, and since I moved, it has been a conversation between me and my girlfriend about looking into it.
Mhm.
But we've just been busy, so we never really got
Oh,
into
for
it.
sure. Yeah, I've taken a hiatus from my local kink community because life just gets got so fucking busy and dumb, and I went to Japan, and I cannot focus on it right now as much as I would love to, because I love that community, love playing, love going to parties and whatnot. It's just a huge time commitment,
Yeah.
and I think for anyone listening who wants to engage in their like local kink community and like meet other people who are kinky, go to FetLife. Like it has a reputation of being kind of a weird, wacky site, but use it how people use Facebook now. Use it for finding events and finding like people you can DM off the platform, you know? Like because
That,
there's a lot of garbage that goes around on Fet and like
yeah.
people, you know, unsolicited DMs and everything like that, but using it as a vehicle to find groups, meetups, conventions, even is how I use the platform, and I think it's really really good to do. Like it's the best platform I'm aware of to do that.
It's like
So
if
that's just what I use.
Facebook and Grinder had a kid.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little bit more like compartmentalized with kink. Like you have to seek out the groups that you're into, and like use the search bar, god forbid, and find out like my local area, groups, and then hit the enter key, and then figure
Mommy
that out, and
Dom's in
like
my area.
literally yes.
Where's the hot milfs?
um and just using that as a resource to find other people who are like you is like a lifesaver, honestly, because otherwise you're going to sit there and think like, oh, I'm weird, no one else is into this thing that I'm into, and you're just going to sit there and stew in your own bullshit.
Yeah.
I'm speaking from experience, imagine.
Oh no. I mean,
Wow.
we could go on hours about kink, and honestly,
Oh, easily. It is
like
one of my favorite things to talk
I
about.
am way too down to have you back and just do a whole episode about kink if you want.
I'd
That's
I would
something we talk down the
happily I
line.
would happily hop back on here. This has been a wonderful hour of discussion, and I hope that you had a good time too and stuff.
Was it good for you too, babe?
So you want to wrap everything up then?
I think it's a pretty good point. But I there is something I have been wanting to do outro wise that I would like to implement if that's something that's okay with you.
Go for it.
Uh, I want to start having a one last off-topic conversation with my guests. So we've had all this talk about trans, and I want one thing that isn't trans related. And I had an idea that I had seen talked about in other things that I would like to pass on to you,
Go for it.
which is give me a hot take. It can be about anything you want.
I have a lot of them that I get made fun of for on like my podcast.
We'll share it. I'm down.
Um,
What's the one?
I have to think of a couple because I've recanted a couple of them. One of the biggest hot takes that I had was we should launch dead bodies into deep space.
That's
I've since
hilarious.
recanted. I've since recanted on that one because it's fucking ridiculous. But I was adamant for a while that I think that you should have the option, instead of like cremation or burial or whatever, to
Yeeted.
put your body in like a airtight casket and just launch yourself into deep space. Because even if your skeletal remains land on a distant planet, they can still study that, and that's
Be
like
hilarious.
proof. Yeah, like proof of other life or whatever. And then, like, on the podcast, I got fucking roasted for it, based on logistical reasons. Like, why would we shoot dead bodies into space? It's such a waste of money. And then also, like, how else would it be perceived other than a threat to, like, see a dead body land on a planet?
I mean, yeah.
But I
That would
think,
be kind of yeah. But
I think a
also,
more, I think a more recent hot take that I have, though, um, that's tough to just come up with off the top of my head.
that's
Do you have one ready to go?
well. First, I'd like to say the joke where that's where you and I differ. I don't have anything off the top of my head. It's all off the bottom.
Nah.
Eh. Uh, Fuck. I didn't expect this one to get turned around on me.
That's okay. I can keep thinking here, and this is just a bunch of dead air to cut.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, I shared one with a friend jokingly, but I will. You know what? I'll stand by it. Whoever said touch grass is a dick.
yeah,
Fucking
I
the
can vibe
outside
with that.
sucks. Who
I
wants
mean,
to
like,
be out there? Vitamin D? Nah, I got the pill, bruh. I got vitamin D from my girlfriend. I don't need the outdoors. Fuck outside. All my homies hate the humidity.
Yeah, I like the sentiment of touch grass, like go outside, be around other people, stop being on the internet so much. Like I vibe with that because being on the internet too much can get like kind of unhealthy kind of quick. But like
What?
the way it's used is so demeaning. Like every so often in stream, I have regulars that'll come in and like pretty seriously say like go touch grass, forehead. And it's like fuck off. I'm doing my best.
That's what the weed pen's for.
Yeah, exactly. I did come up with a hot take.
Oh.
Nutella is fucking gross, and I'm tired of pretending it's not.
I feel like I'm not the person to argue this over because I
No, and
never
that's
really
totally
liked it.
fine.
I always thought it was just kind of mid. I was like, I guess it's okay. It's not my thing.
Yeah, I know. Like when it first was like getting really popular, like in the 2010s, 2015, whatever era.
It was definitely
Um,
its own minor meme.
yeah, like people really like Nutella, who like Nutella, and like it's just so gross. It's just so concentrated sugar chocolatey bullshit, and it's like only in choice small amounts on some desserts am I okay with it. Otherwise, it's just smearing like a melted Hershey bar over a toast, and that sucks. I hate that so much. It's gross and I hate
I mean, if I wanted to up the freaking taste of my bread or my sandwich, I'd add a different nut.
it.
Anyway,
It's another really uncomfortably long pause.
by the way, do you have any spare?
I passed out 6 times making these for you. Those images always get me going. I think they're really funny.
Did you see the one that she did in response to like her own meme?
No,
I'll send it to you after a podcast. It's funny.
for sure, for sure.
But I guess we should do a proper outro.
Yeah,
So one last time, what was your name and where can we find you?
for sure. My name is Tay. You can find me on predominantly Twitch. It's Tay Kitten on Twitch. Twitch.tv/Tay Kitten. Follow me on Twitter. That's at Tay_454. I believe my Twitter handle is. Or is it Tay Kitten 454? I don't fucking remember. Is it
It's okay.
Twitter?
It's
Is it
on.
X? Who cares?
I was gonna make the same joke. You beat me to it. It's
I'm
all gonna be
pulling it
linked
up.
below anyway.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now just so I'm not talking about my ass. It's at taykitten_454. And then you can join my Discord if you would like, but please stop by the stream first just so I can get to know you. Other than that, I'm just kind of out and about. I do have a TikTok. You can find that through my link tree underneath my Twitch panels, but I barely use it other than to like comment on thirst traps.
Oh
And
my
I don't
god, that
like
was you?
Yeah, no, literally, yes. That's what I do. Like every so often when I'm scrolling through my feed, because I'm like, fuck it, I barely use this platform as it is. Like, some dommy mommy will come on, like, be like, latex, look at this cool latex, and I'm just like, oh my god, you're pretty, send, and then I just scroll past.
So are those like all your messages sound like, oh my god, you're like so pretty, like oh my gosh.
Do you want? Okay, I know we're kind of pushing time, but let me
I have
pull
all the
up.
time I need. Freaking, you're the one who has time to shoot.
True, true, true. Let me pull up my TikTok really quick here. I don't do like I would rather have my like proper internet history leaked than my TikTok like feed.
Oh, they're both pretty bad. No, specifically not for my TikTok, but my Twitter likes. Twitter likes versus internet history. That's a hard one.
Fair enough. Is there a way to check comments you've made on TikTok?
Possibly. I don't use the app. I have one. I haven't used it in a long while.
Let's see. I'm just going through some stuff. I mean, aren't we all? But
Alright, time to trauma dump.
all right, let's see here. So on a comment of a thirst trap TikTok, come on, just show me the fucking comment TikTok. Oh my god. I responded I .. just .. whoa and then the flushed emoji.
That does sound like you.
There's one that was like a specific dom, like 2 doms showing off their latex and being like, "This is what we look like before we bully you." And I replied, "Yes, please, kitty face." It's so embarrassing and cringe. Fuck.
You're
the
both
only you're the
adorable, but I
only
also just want
one.
to squeeze you.
Yeah, you're the only one I've ever told this to, by the way.
Am I cutting this part out?
No, you're fine.
Okay.
But yeah, thanks for having me and everything.
No problem.